Either I'm getting shorter or this fig is taking off. Guten Yardening, everybody. If you are new to the channel, we'd like to welcome you here for the first time, and if you're returning, welcome back. You know, getting a plant for the first time, something that's brand new to you, is kind of exciting because it's an opportunity to learn more about something that you've never tried before. And I love that aspect of gardening, as we're constantly out there learning more as we expand all the things that we're growing both indoors and outdoors. And one example of that is our Chicago hardy fig, a plant that we just opened a few months ago. And you can see in the last couple of months the explosion of growth that we're seeing. I would say that the new growth on this is probably about 2.5 feet long. And if you compare that to how this started, which was just two little sprigs that looked as though nothing could possibly come from them, you can see why we're so excited for what we have growing here on our fig. But that's not all. We've already done a couple of videos on the fig, and you can check out our video on 9 things you should know about the fig tree. But one of the things we talked about was the amount of time it takes to start bearing fruit. And I'm going to bring you up close as I talk you through what we're seeing with this fig tree already. Now, for those of you who don't know, we are here in grow zone number 5 in Wisconsin. And for a fig to do well here, if we're going to move it outdoors, it needs to be a hardy fig. And that's why we've chosen the Chicago hardy fig, one that's supposed to grow well in zones 5 through 11. And even though we're not going to plant this outdoors in the ground, we are going to transport it outdoors as the weather gets warmer, and that's coming up pretty quickly. Now, I have gone back and forth over this plant a couple of times, and I'm sure you've zeroed in on what we're really excited to see already here in this first year's growth. And that is, of course, some of these amazing figs already beginning to develop on this plant. Now, one of the things I talked about a couple of seconds ago in this video is the excitement that comes from learning all there is to learn, or as much as you can learn about these new plants as you start to grow them. And one of the things that we've been focused on is learning what it takes to get this new fruit to go to maturity, and really what we can expect from this fruit here in the first year of growth. So one of the first things we should notice about the fruit is that it's developing here between our leaves, where they branch out, and our main stem. And you can follow this growth really nicely. You can see it coming right here. And you're going to notice, and we mentioned this again in our earlier video on 9 things you should know about the fig, there aren't going to be any blossoms, because this is an internal blossom. So any flowering, any blooming that might be happening, the blossom is inside the fig. It's kind of an inverted flower. So we're not going to see any blooming. We're not going to see anything like this. And this isn't a variety that requires any kind of special pollination from a special wasp or anything like that. This is a self-pollinating plant. So it's going to develop this fruit and continue to develop this fruit all on its own without the need for any of those external pollinators. So what should we expect from the development of these figs here on our brand new growth for this season? And that is a question that we've been researching, trying to determine if this is actually going to be fruit that is going to ripen the whole way, or if it will fall off as it starts to develop further because it's not ready yet. And quite frankly, I'm not sure of the answer to that. And those of you who are more expert on this variety, or who are more expert on figs just in general, maybe you could weigh in at this point and let us know what you think. But from my understanding, regardless of how much this matures, the taste probably won't be as good as the taste would be in the second year of growth as this plant gets more established. All right, we're looking at this from a slightly different angle now, and you can see the terminal end here. And I've read that you can cut this off later in the season as you want to try to force some of the ripening to happen down here with the figs, but we're not going to do that. We're going to keep this growth going for sure. The Chicago hardy fig is a medium-sized fig. It's supposed to have a nice sweet taste, and when it ripens up, this will droop over and you will feel the outer skin will be a little bit softer. We're nowhere close to that now, but one of the questions I've been researching is the answer to the question why a fig might not be ripening over the long haul. So in other words, you've got it sitting there on the plant and it's not getting any bigger, it's not getting any riper. And the answer to that question seems to be primarily around the idea of stress. And the things that stress out your plant, that stress out these figs, tend to be lack of water and lack of nutrients. Now the soil that we're growing this in, this potting mix, has plenty of nutrient value. In fact, we aren't really worried about feeding it or fertilizing it because we have plenty of growth happening. If the leaves were turning yellow or if there was some sort of stunted growth, we weren't getting this beautiful growth that we're seeing right now, then we might consider feeding it with a 5-5-5 or a 10-10-10 balanced fertilizer. But because we're not seeing that, we're not feeding it. What we are doing is watering this about twice a week. The soil is nice and damp. It's not retaining water at all. We don't want to flood it in any way, but we do want to keep it nice and moist as it's really establishing. Once it gets bigger, once we pot it up a little bit bigger, we may have to be more or less concerned depending on what we see happening with the soil. One thing's for sure, you should be able to see if something is going wrong with these plants. And if they're growing in containers, remember, the containers tend to not keep the moisture the way the ground does. And so you probably have to be a little more aware of how much you're watering these plants. I'm going to go back up here and take a look at these leaves because look at them in the light. These are absolutely beautiful leaves and all of this amazing fruit on top of it here in year number 1. I'll tell you the truth though, if we don't get a harvest out of this, if these didn't ripen up all the way, if they don't mature, in no way am I disappointed by this plant, because what we're seeing is the potential that this little tiny set of 2 twigs is bringing to us within just 1 year. And so we can imagine what that year over year of growth is going to be like. So we don't need to pot up for now. I think this 1 gallon container is plenty big enough for what we have right here, but likely as we head into a more dormant season after the summer here, then we'll pot up. That's the best time, the preferred time to pot up your fig is when it has gone dormant. But take a look at that beauty. Isn't that stunning? That growth over just a few months. And again, all of that fruit. And so we will definitely keep you updated here over the next couple of months as the fruit continues to hopefully mature, as we make sure we don't stress out this plant, that we keep it going, and that we enjoy the fruit that it is going to bring to us. Oh, look at these beauties. Well, we hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, don't forget to give us a like. Leave us a comment, let us know what you think. Remember to share and subscribe. And most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.